Imagine this, a homeless man, shivering in the cold, holding on to his only companion in the world, his loyal dog. Then, out of nowhere, two smug thieves approach him, laughing as they snatch the last few dollars he's been saving for food. They mock him, thinking he's powerless, thinking no one cares about a man like him. But here's what they don't know, that scruffy little dog by his side? It belongs to someone very important. And by the time this story is over, those thieves will wish they had never crossed paths with either of them. Now, I know what you're thinking. Asterisk, who is this famous owner? How does a homeless man end up with a dog connected to someone powerful? Asterisk, and most importantly, what happens when the truth comes out? Stick with me, because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. This isn't just some random act of cruelty. It's the beginning of a jaw-dropping chain of events that will leave you cheering for justice. Let me ask you something. Have you ever seen someone get humiliated and wish they had someone to stand up for them? That's exactly what's about to happen here. But the revenge? It's not what you'd expect. It's not about fists or fights. It's about power, connections, and the kind of karma that hits harder than any punch. Here's the thing. Those thieves thought they were untouchable. They picked on someone they assumed had no voice, no way to fight back. But they messed up. Big time. Because that dog? It's the key to everything. And when the truth finally comes out, the tables will turn in the most satisfying way possible. So here's my promise to you. If you stay until the end, you'll get the full story. You'll see the moment those thieves realize just how badly they've underestimated the man they robbed. You'll witness the shock, the panic, the instant regret. And most importantly, you'll see justice served in a way that'll have you hitting that like button and sharing this video with everyone you know. But before we get to the explosive reveal, let's rewind to where it all began, to that cold, quiet street where a homeless man's life was about to change forever and where two arrogant criminals were seconds away from making the biggest mistake of their lives. Asterisk, asterisk, the plot thickens. A dangerous secret emerges. Asterisk, asterisk. Just when it seemed like justice was within reach, things took a dark and unexpected turn. The homeless man, Daniel, knew his dog, Scout, was special, but he had no idea just how deep this mystery went. After the robbery, he tried reaching out to the only person he thought could help, an old friend from his past who used to work in law enforcement. But the moment he mentioned Scout's name, the line went silent. Then, a hushed warning. Asterisk, stop asking questions. You don't know what you're messing with. Asterisk, click. The call ended just like that. Now, think about that for a second. Why would someone who's supposed to help suddenly act so afraid? What kind of secret could be so dangerous that even a retired cop wouldn't touch it? That's when Daniel started piecing together the clues. Scout's expensive-looking collar, the way he obeyed commands in a way no ordinary stray would, the faint scar behind his ear that looked like it came from a microchip. Someone had gone to great lengths to keep this dog's past hidden. And now, Daniel was digging into something far bigger than a simple robbery. But here's where it gets even crazier. The next morning, Daniel woke up to find Scout's food bowl missing. Not stolen, just gone, like it had never been there. And the worst part? His backpack, the one with the only photo he had of him and Scout together, had been rifled through. Someone was watching him. Someone who didn't want the truth coming out. Then came the final twist. A stranger approached Daniel in the alley behind the diner, where he sometimes got scraps. No threats, no demands. Just a single sentence that sent chills down his spine. Asterisk, that dog doesn't belong to you. And the man who's looking for him? You don't want him as an enemy. Asterisk, before Daniel could respond, the stranger vanished into the crowd, leaving him with more questions than answers. Who was this mysterious man searching for Scout? Why was everyone so terrified of him? And most importantly, how was Daniel supposed to protect Scout when he didn't even know what he was up against? One thing was clear, this wasn't just about money or revenge anymore. This was about survival. And that's when Daniel made a decision. One that would change everything. He wasn't going to run. He wasn't going to hide. He was going to find out the truth, no matter the cost. But little did he know, the moment he took that next step, there would be no turning back. Stay tuned, because in the next part of the story, You'll see just how far someone is willing to go to keep a secret buried, and what happens when a homeless man with nothing to lose decides to fight back. Trust me, you do not want to miss what happens next. Asterisk, asterisk, a darker conspiracy unfolds. The web of lies tightens, asterisk, asterisk. Just as Daniel was steeling himself to uncover the truth about Scout, another shocking piece of the puzzle fell into place, one that would make this mystery even more dangerous. Across town, a woman named Elena, a former shelter volunteer who had once helped Daniel during his darkest days, received an anonymous envelope slipped under her door. Inside was a single photograph, a younger, well-dressed man holding Scout, his face partially obscured, but his posture radiating power. Scrawled on the back in jagged handwriting were 3 words, asterisk, silence is survival. Asterisk, the misspelling sent a different kind of chill through her. This wasn't just a warning, it was a taunt, as if whoever sent it knew she'd understand the reference. Elena hadn't spoken to Daniel in months, so why target her now? Unless they knew she had information. And that's when she remembered something she'd buried in the back of her mind. A late-night conversation with a panicked stranger months ago, a man who had come to the shelter looking for a lost dog. He hadn't described Scout by name, but he'd mentioned a scar behind the ear, a detail too specific to ignore. At the time, she'd brushed it off, assuming he was just another desperate soul searching for a missing pet. But now, with this photograph in her hands, the pieces were aligning in a way that made her stomach twist. That man hadn't just been looking for a dog, he'd been hunting. Meanwhile, Daniel, unaware of Elena's discovery, stumbled upon his own disturbing clue. While digging through a dumpster for food, he found a shredded newspaper article, one that had clearly been torn apart intentionally. The fragments he could piece together showed a headline, asterisk, prominent businessman's beloved dog goes missing. Asterisk, the rest was unreadable, but one name stood out in the torn margin. Vincent K. No last name, just an initial. Was this Scout's real owner? A wealthy man with connections powerful enough to make people disappear? Or was this another layer of deception, a red herring meant to lead Daniel into a trap? The stakes were spiraling out of control. Every step closer to the truth seemed to pull someone else into danger. Elena, now terrified, debated whether to warn Daniel or burn the photograph and pretend she'd never seen it. But before she could decide, her phone buzzed with an unknown number. No message, just a blurry, low-resolution image of her own apartment building, taken recently. The unspoken threat was clear. We're watching you too. And then, the final twist, the moment that would change everything. As Daniel sat on a park bench, Scout curled protectively at his feet. A sleek black car rolled to a stop nearby. The window lowered just enough for a voice, smooth and icy, to say, asterisk, you have something that doesn't belong to you. Hand it over and you walk away. Keep digging, and you won't like what finds you. Asterisk. Before Daniel could respond, the car sped off, leaving behind only the faint scent of expensive cologne and one horrifying realization. This wasn't just about a stolen dog anymore. This was about something far bigger, something worth killing for. Now, with enemies closing in from all sides and no one left to trust, Daniel faces an impossible choice. Run and abandon Scout to whatever fate awaits him, or stand his ground and risk everything to uncover a truth that's already claimed who knows how many victims. But the real question is, who's really pulling the strings? And what else are they hiding? Stay tuned, because the next chapter of this story will reveal a betrayal so deep, it will rewrite everything you thought you knew. The walls are closing in, and when the dust settles, nothing will ever be the same. You have to see what happens next. Asterisk, asterisk, the trap closes. A night that changes everything, asterisk, asterisk. The air smelled like rain, thick and electric, as Daniel hurried down the dimly lit alley, his usual shortcut to the abandoned parking garage where he and Scout had been sleeping. But tonight, something was off. The hairs on the back of his neck stood on end, that primal instinct screaming at him that he wasn't alone. He glanced over his shoulder, catching the briefest flicker of movement, a shadow darting behind a dumpster, too fast to be a coincidence. Someone was following him. And they weren't even trying to hide it anymore. Scout let out a low growl, his body tense, ears pinned back. He sensed it too. Daniel picked up his pace, his heart hammering against his ribs, the weight of the last few days crashing down on him all at once. The shredded newspaper article, the warning from the stranger in the car, the way Elena had suddenly stopped answering his calls. None of it was random. He was being hunted. And the worst part? He still didn't even know why. Then the unthinkable happened. A loud crack echoed through the alley, the sound of splintering wood. Daniel spun around just in time to see a figure in a black hoodie kicking over the makeshift shelter he built for Scout near the old diner. The guy wasn't just vandalizing it. He was searching it, tearing through the blankets, the few possessions Daniel had left. This wasn't a robbery. This was a message. Asterisk, we know where you sleep. We know where you hide. And we're coming for you. Asterisk. Daniel's blood ran cold. He couldn't go back there. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. But where else could he go? The shelters were too exposed, the streets too dangerous. And then it hit him, the one place no one would expect him to run. Elena's apartment. She'd helped him before. Maybe, just maybe, she'd help him again. But when he finally reached her building, his hope shattered like glass. Police tape stretched across the front door. Neighbors huddled in clusters, whispering. And through the buzz of fragmented conversations, one phrase sliced through the noise. Asterisk, no forced entry, just gone. Asterisk, Elena had vanished. No struggle, no note. Just an empty apartment with a half-drunk cup of coffee still warm on the counter. Daniel stumbled back, his breath coming in ragged gasps. This wasn't just a threat anymore. This was a war. And he was losing. Whoever was after Scout wasn't playing games. They were erasing anyone who got too close to the truth. That's when the text came through. An unknown number. No words, just a single image. A photo of Daniel, taken minutes ago, standing in front of Elena's building. The caption? A time stamp. 12 hours. A deadline. A countdown. To what? Now, with nowhere left to run and no one left to trust, Daniel realizes the horrifying truth. He's not just fighting for Scout anymore. He's fighting for his life. And the clock is ticking. Stay tuned, because the next chapter will reveal who's really behind this, and the shocking reason they'll do anything to keep Scout from being found. You won't believe what happens next. Asterisk, asterisk, the truth unmasked. A betrayal that rewrites everything, asterisk, asterisk. The rain came down in sheets as Daniel ducked into the empty subway station. Scout pressed close to his side, both of them trembling, not just from the cold, but from the realization that they were running out of time. That ominous text with the 12-hour countdown burned in his mind, each passing minute tightening the noose around his neck. He needed answers, and there was only one person left who might have them. Marty, the grizzled old hot dog vendor who'd slipped him free meals on the worst days and always seemed to know more than he let on. If anyone had heard whispers about a missing dog or a powerful man pulling strings in the shadows, it would be him. But when Daniel finally found Marty at his usual corner, the old man's face drained of color the moment he saw Scout. His usual gruff warmth vanished, replaced by something far more unsettling: guilt. "You need to get rid of that dog, kid," Marty muttered, his voice barely above a whisper as he glanced over Daniel's shoulder, scanning the street like he expected trouble. "I tried to warn you before, but you didn't listen. That ain't just some stray. That's his dog. And you don't steal from Vincent Kessler and live to talk about it." The name hit Daniel like a punch to the gut. Vincent Kessler, the billionaire tech mogul whose face was splashed across billboards and news headlines, a so-called philanthropist with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. But why would a man like that want Scout back so badly? The dog wasn't just a pet. That much was clear. There was something else going on, something darker. Then Marty dropped the bombshell. "That dog's got a microchip, kid. Not the kind you scan at a vet. The kind that holds data. Asterisk, valuable asterisk data. Kessler's been using him to move encrypted files under the radar for years. No one suspects a damn golden retriever." He leaned in closer, his breath reeking of stale coffee and fear. But something went wrong. Scout got out. And now Kessler's cleaning house. Anyone who's seen that dog, anyone who knows, ends up disappeared. Like your friend Elena. Like you're gonna be if you don't walk away right now. Daniel's mind reeled. This whole time, he thought he was protecting Scout from thieves, from the streets, but the real danger was the dog himself. Scout wasn't just a victim in all this. He was the key to something far bigger than Daniel could have imagined. And the people hunting them? They weren't just hired muscle. They were Kessler's private security team, trained to eliminate loose ends with surgical precision. But the most chilling realization of all? Marty wasn't just a concerned bystander. As he reached into his cart with shaking hands, he pulled out a phone. Asterisk, the same one that had sent the countdown text asterisk, and Daniel understood the truth too late. Marty had been working for Kessler all along. The free meals, the advice, the fake concern, it was all a way to keep tabs on Scout. And now, with a look of pained resignation, Marty hit send on a message Daniel would never see. Somewhere in the city, a team mobilized. The clock wasn't just ticking anymore, it had run out. And as the first black SUV screeched around the corner, Daniel did the only thing he could think of.
He ran.
Not just for his life, but for the truth. Because if Kessler was willing to kill to keep the secret buried, then the world needed to know what Scout was really carrying. The question is, will he make it out alive to tell the story?
Stay tuned.
Because the final chapter of this thriller isn't just about survival anymore. It's about revenge. And trust me, you've never seen a downfall like the one that's coming for Vincent Kessler. Asterisk, asterisk, the point of no return. A choice that changes everything, asterisk, asterisk. The subway tunnels beneath the city had become a maze of shadows and echoes, the only place left where Daniel and Scout could disappear, for now. But as the distant sound of boots pounding against concrete grew louder, Daniel knew they were running out of time. His hands shook as he clutched Scout's collar, the weight of Marty's betrayal pressing down on him like a physical force. The old man had been his last connection to anything resembling safety, and now even that was gone. Worse, Marty had known this whole time. He'd fed Daniel just enough information to keep him docile, to keep Scout within reach, all while reporting back to Kessler's men. The realization made Daniel's stomach twist. How many others had lied to him? How many had watched him stumble through this nightmare, knowing exactly how it would end? Then, a vibration against his leg. The burner phone he'd swiped from a convenience store the night before, his last-ditch effort to stay off the grid. A single message lit up the screen, sent from an encrypted number. Asterisk, you have one chance. Leave the dog at the 42nd Street Station locker number 117 and walk away.
Do it and you live.
Refuse and we find you. Asterisk, the words blurred as Daniel's vision swam with exhaustion and fury. This wasn't just an ultimatum, it was a taunt. They knew he wouldn't abandon Scout. They wanted him to fight back, to make this harder than it had to be. Because Kessler didn't just want the dog back. He wanted Daniel gone.
Permanently.
Scout whined softly, nuzzling against Daniel's leg as if sensing the storm raging inside him. This dog, this stranger's dog, had become the only thing in the world that mattered to him. Scout had slept curled against his chest on freezing nights, had barked a warning when danger crept too close, had looked at Daniel like he was worth something in a world that had long since written him off. How could he just hand him over? How could he walk away and pretend none of this had happened? But the alternative was worse. If Kessler's men caught them, Scout would disappear into some high-security lab, and Daniel? He'd be another body in an unmarked grave, another nameless victim of a man too powerful to touch. A noise echoed down the tunnel, a shout. Too close. They'd been found. Daniel's breath came in sharp, panicked bursts as he weighed his options. There was a third choice, one so reckless it bordered on suicide. The data on Scout's microchip, whatever Kessler was hiding, it was valuable enough to kill for. If Daniel could get it to the right person, if he could expose the truth before Kessler's men silenced him for good, maybe there was still a way out. But that meant trusting someone new, and after Marty, after Elena, how could he? Then, a memory surfaced, fragmented but sharp. Weeks ago, before any of this had started, a reporter had approached him outside the shelter. She'd been asking questions about missing persons in the area, about rumors of Kessler's involvement. At the time, Daniel had brushed her off, assuming she was just another journalist chasing a dead-end story. But what if she'd been onto something? What if she was the only person left who could help? The footsteps grew louder. There was no more time to think. Daniel made his choice. With Scout at his side, he turned and ran deeper into the tunnels, toward the last place anyone would expect him to go, straight into the heart of the storm. Because if he was going down, he'd do it swinging. And Kessler? He was about to learn the hard way that even a homeless man with nothing left to lose could be the most dangerous enemy of all. The final showdown is coming. And when the dust settles, nothing will ever be the same. Don't miss the explosive conclusion to this story. Trust me, you've never seen a takedown like the one that's coming. Asterisk, asterisk, the final revelation. A conspiracy that runs deeper than anyone imagined, asterisk, asterisk. The abandoned subway maintenance room reeked of rust and damp concrete, the flickering fluorescent light casting jagged shadows across the walls as Daniel crouched behind a stack of crumbling supply crates, Scout pressed tightly against his side. His lungs burned from running, his muscles screamed in protest, but the adrenaline surging through his veins kept him moving, kept him sharp. The reporter's office was just 3 blocks away. If he could make it there without being spotted, if he could convince her to listen, there might still be a chance to expose Kessler before his men silenced them both for good. But as the distant echo of shouted orders and radio static bounced through the tunnels, Daniel realized with a sinking certainty that they weren't just being chased anymore. They were being hunted. Then the unthinkable happened. A figure stepped into the dim light at the far end of the tunnel, not another faceless enforcer in tactical gear, but a woman Daniel recognized instantly. Elena. Her clothes were disheveled, her face streaked with dirt and dried blood, but she was alive. Relief flooded through him for half a second before cold suspicion doused it. How had she escaped? Why was she here? Before he could call out, she raised a shaking finger to her lips, her eyes wide with warning. Then she mouthed 2 words that turned his blood to ice. Asterisk, they're listening. Asterisk. A crackle of static split the air, and suddenly the pieces fell into place with horrifying clarity. Elena hadn't been taken. She'd been used. Kessler's men had let her go, had herded her here like bait, knowing Daniel would trust her. And now they were closing in from all sides, their radios humming with quiet coordination. This wasn't just about silencing a homeless man who'd stumbled onto their secret anymore. This was an operation. Scout's microchip didn't just hold encrypted files. It contained evidence of something far worse.
Names. Dates.
Proof that Kessler hadn't just been moving data. He'd been moving people. Elena's hands trembled as she shoved a crumpled photograph into Daniel's grip. The image was grainy, taken from a security camera, but the faces were unmistakable. Kessler shaking hands with a man the world knew as a human trafficker, their exchange happening right under the cover of one of his so-called charity galas. And there, in the corner of the frame, barely visible, was Scout. Not as a pet, but as a courier, his microchip the perfect way to transport information too volatile for digital networks. A metallic clang echoed through the tunnels, boots on metal, getting closer. Elena's voice was barely a whisper, frantic. They're not just Kessler's men. Cops are in on it too. Everyone is. You can't trust anyone. Her eyes flicked to Scout, then back to Daniel, brimming with tears. But you already knew that, didn't you? The truth hit him like a sledgehammer. This went higher than he'd ever imagined. If Kessler had law enforcement in his pocket, if he could make people vanish without a trace, then there was no safe place left to run. Daniel's mind raced, every instinct screaming at him to pull the trigger, to take a shot at Kessler and damn the consequences. But then he noticed it, the faintest flicker of movement behind Kessler's shoulder. A shadow where there shouldn't have been one. A figure slipping silently through the cracked office door. Elena. Blood still streaked her shirt from the gunshot wound, her face pale with pain, but her eyes burned with a fierce, unyielding determination. She lifted a single finger to her lips, her other hand tightening around the grip of a pistol. She hadn't sacrificed herself in the tunnels. She'd followed, and now, for the first time since this nightmare began, Daniel realized he wasn't alone. The room erupted into chaos. Elena fired first, her bullet shattering the window behind Kessler's head as he ducked, his composure finally cracking into raw panic. Daniel didn't hesitate. He grabbed Scout and lunged for cover behind Lena's desk as gunfire filled the air, the sound deafening in the confined space. Kessler's guards rushed in, but Elena was already moving, her shots precise, her movements sharp with the desperation of someone who had nothing left to lose. "The drive," she shouted at Daniel over the gunfire. "Get it to the network. The red button on the desk, press it now." Daniel's fingers closed around the USB drive, his heart pounding as he spotted the small, unassuming device on Lena's desk, an emergency broadcast switch, the kind used by investigative journalists to send data to secure servers if things went wrong. He slammed his palm down on it just as a bullet tore through the monitor beside him, glass exploding like shrapnel. Somewhere in the chaos, Kessler was screaming, not in anger, but in fear, because in that moment, Daniel understood the real truth. It was never just about the data on Scout's microchip. It was about where that data was being sent. Kessler hadn't just been moving information. He'd been moving weapons, and the names on that list? They led straight to the highest levels of power. The gunfire stopped as suddenly as it had begun. Smoke hung thick in the air, the scent of gunpowder and blood sharp against the back of Daniel's throat. Elena stood over Kessler, her gun pressed to his temple, her breath coming in ragged gasps. The billionaire's perfect facade had crumbled, his tailored suit stained with sweat, his eyes wide with the realization that his empire was about to burn. Outside, sirens wailed. Real ones this time. The data had been sent. The truth was out. And there was no silencing it now. Daniel slumped against the desk, Scout curling into his side, both of them exhausted but alive. The fight was over. But as he watched Elena lower her gun, as he saw the hollow victory in her eyes, he knew this wasn't a happy ending. It was just an ending. Kessler would fall, but the system that created him would still be there. The people who had looked the other way would still be in power.
And Daniel?
He was still a homeless man with a dog, his face now plastered across every news channel in the country. But as the police stormed the room, as cameras flashed and reporters shouted questions, Daniel did something he hadn't done in years. He smiled. Because for the first time, the world was finally seeing what he'd always known, that the people they ignored, the ones they walked past every day without a second glance, were the ones who could change everything. The screen fades to black. Asterisk, but the story doesn't end here. Because somewhere in the shadows, another dog with another microchip watches. And another man, just as invisible as Daniel once was, reaches down to pet it. Asterisk, the fight's just beginning. Subscribe for more. Because the world is full of secrets. And someone's always watching.